was handled in an immature manner. I just let it run. Now I'm a little bit more mature, and I'm gonna get even more mature with time. So now I'm more mature, I can go, I know I want to do that. This is what I would do, but I ain't gonna do it.
How would you characterize yourself in the past? What does immature mean to you?
I was immature. I did things without thinking. My actions came before thought.
And sometimes maybe words too.
And all my
Two legends, two unsolved murders, and one man at the center of a storm. For decades, the world has speculated, were Tupac Shakur and the notorious B.I.G. mere victims of a deadly rivalry, or were they silenced to protect something far more sinister? Today, we uncover shocking allegations that could rewrite the history of hip-hop forever. In the 1990s, Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls were more than just artists. They were cultural icons. Their music defined a generation, their words inspired millions, and their deaths left a void that still haunts the world of hip-hop. But what if their murders were no coincidence? What if these two legends were caught in a web of greed, power, and betrayal that stretched far beyond the music industry? At the heart of this story lies one of hip-hop's most infamous rivalries, the East Coast versus West Coast feud. It was a clash of styles, egos, and ambitions that escalated into something deadly. On one side was Sean Diddy Combs, the face of Bad Boy Records and the East Coast's biggest power player. On the other was Suge Knight, the fearsome head of Death Row Records representing the West Coast. And caught in the middle were Tupac and Biggie, two friends turned rivals whose lives would be cut tragically short. The rivalry between Diddy and Suge Knight wasn't just about music, it was a battle for dominance. Suge, known for his brutal no-nonsense tactics, was the embodiment of raw power. Diddy, on the other hand, built his empire on charm and calculated moves. But beneath the surface, their feud was anything but polished. It was ugly, personal, and as some believed, deadly. Tupac was Suge's biggest asset, a voice so powerful it threatened to overshadow Diddy's entire roster. Meanwhile, Limestone and Biggie was Diddy's golden boy, poised to dominate the charts. The stakes were higher than ever, and as the tension escalated, it became clear that this wasn't just about selling records, it was about survival. In 1994, the shooting at Quad Studios wasn't just an attack, it was a catalyst that forever changed the trajectory of Tupac's life and career. As Tupac lay wounded, his mind raced with questions, suspicions, and fears. He believed the ambush was more than a random act of violence. In interviews, he accused not only his enemies, but also those he once considered friends. The betrayal he felt was palpable, and he singled out Biggie and Diddy as the orchestrators. Tupac's claim that they set him up wasn't just a throwaway accusation, it became a central narrative in the East Coast-West Coast feud. But what really happened that night? Many who were present have remained silent, fueling speculation. Some reports suggest that individuals connected to Diddy's Bad Boy Records were seen near the studio hours before the shooting. Was this merely coincidence, or was it or was it part of a carefully laid plan to eliminate a rival? Adding to the mystery, some insiders allege that Tupac received warnings to leave the studio that day but ignored them, believing he was among allies. As Tupac's paranoia grew, so did his defiance. His diss tracks, particularly the incendiary Hit 'Em Up, were more than just artistic expression. They were declarations of war. With every lyric, Tupac painted a target on his back, daring his enemies to come for him. Yet behind the bravado, he must have sensed the danger closing in. Tupac wasn't just fighting a feud, he was battling forces much larger than himself. Even after their deaths, the chilling aura surrounding Tupac and Biggie's murders has cast a shadow over the music industry. Those who knew them describe an environment of fear and intimidation where speaking out could lead to dire consequences. Some claim that key witnesses were silenced, while others were paid off to stay quiet. It wasn't just about protecting reputations, it was about safeguarding an empire. This culture of fear has persisted for decades, discouraging those who might hold the answers from stepping forward. The question remains, how many more secrets are locked away and who has the key to unlocking them? 6 months after Tupac's murder in Las Vegas, the unthinkable happened. Biggie was killed in Los Angeles. 2 drive-by shootings eerily similar, with no clear suspects. The murders shocked the world, but they also raised questions. How could 2 of the most high-profile artists in the world be gunned down in such public spaces without any arrests? Investigators hit dead ends, but fans and insiders began to connect the dots. The similarities between the murders were too striking to ignore. Were these killings part of a larger plan to silence both Tupac and Biggie? And if so, who stood to gain the most? The answer, some say, lies in the power dynamics of the music industry. By the mid-90s, Diddy had built Bad Boy Records into a multi-million-dollar empire, but with success came enemies and secrets. Insiders have claimed that Diddy's obsession with control drove him to make ruthless decisions. Allegations of bribes, threats, and even murders have followed him for years. Could it be that the deaths of Tupac and Biggie were part of a calculated strategy to protect Diddy's empire? And if so, how far would he go to keep the truth hidden? To understand the deaths of Tupac and Biggie, one must delve into the murky depths of the music industry's power structures. This wasn't just about rivalries, it was about control. Industry giants like Diddy and Suge Knight weren't just businessmen, they were power players in a game that blurred the lines between music, money, and crime. Allegations of mob connections, money laundering, and violent enforcements swirl around the industry's biggest names. Could these sinister dealings have played a role in the deaths of two of its brightest stars? And if so, how deep does this rabbit hole go? For years, the truth about Tupac and Biggie's murders seemed destined to remain hidden. But in recent times, a new wave of whistleblowers has begun to shed light on the darkest corners of the music industry. Comedian Cat Williams is one of the most vocal voices, fearlessly accusing Diddy of direct involvement in Tupac's death. In interviews, Cat has described Diddy as a demon, a man whose power and influence have allowed him to escape accountability for decades. Cat's allegations are backed by others who've dared to speak out. Keith D, a former gang member with alleged ties to both murders, has made explosive claims about receiving payments to carry out hits. While some dismiss these statements as opportunistic, they align with other rumors that have persisted for years. Even Eminem in his lyrics has hinted at Diddy's possible involvement, adding to the mounting pressure on the hip-hop mogul. The courage of these whistleblowers has sparked a renewed interest in these cases, but it has also come with risks. Many who've spoken out have faced threats, legal challenges, and intense scrutiny. Yet their voices are a testament to the growing demand for answers. The question now is, will their revelations finally lead to justice, or will the industry's power players once again succeed in burying the truth? Biggie's closest friends have often spoken about the weight of guilt he carried in the months after Tupac's death. Some say he felt indirectly responsible for the escalation of their feud. Others claim he knew more about what happened that night in Las Vegas than he let on. Whatever the case, those close to him reported a growing unease, as though he was preparing for something inevitable. Was Biggie's silence to prevent him from revealing the truth about Tupac? Or was his death another piece in a larger, darker puzzle? As the allegations continue to surface, the role of the public has become more important than ever. Fans, journalists, and online communities have taken it upon themselves to piece together the puzzle. From analyzing old interviews to uncovering hidden connections, the collective effort to seek justice for Tupac and Biggie is stronger than ever. But as the truth edges closer to the surface, so do the obstacles. Suppressed evidence, legal threats, and powerful forces work tirelessly to keep the secrets buried. Yet the public's determination remains unwavering. Could this renewed focus finally bring closure to these decades-old cases? For the families of Tupac and Biggie, justice remains an elusive dream. Over the years, they've faced endless dead ends, false leads, and institutional indifference. Despite the public's relentless demand for answers, the system has failed to deliver. Yet the fight continues. Advocacy groups, journalists, and even fans have joined forces to push for a reopening of the investigations. With new voices like Cat Williams shining a spotlight on these cases, the possibility of justice feels closer than ever. But will the truth come out before it's too late? The murders of Tupac Shakur and the notorious B.I.G. remain two of the greatest mysteries in music history. But as new voices speak out and new evidence comes to light, we edge closer to the truth. Were these two legends silenced to protect an empire, or is the truth even darker than we imagine? It's up to us to keep asking questions, demanding answers, and honoring their legacies. Justice may be long overdue, but the fight isn't over. Stay tuned, because this story is far from finished.